Alrighty, let's get into JavaScript a little bit. This video we'll talk about some functions, parameters, and arguments, getting things from the DOM and adding to the DOM, and talk a little bit about properties and useful functions in JavaScript that are already there for us to use. So we got this basic page right here already. This is, there's some Bootstrap and stuff, some basic content, and a JavaScript file. You notice I have console I exist here. So this is the little trick that I always like to do just to make sure my script is running. Console log writes. So by the way, what I just did there is right click, inspect. We can also hit Control Shift I. Oh no, that's not good. Anyway, I always like to do that whenever I'm troubleshooting JavaScript, or just when I'm adding a file, just to make sure it adds there, so that I exist in a file is being printed from that JavaScript file right here. So, good little troubleshooting tip. Just make sure you're not going crazy. Anyway, so we have some HTML elements here that say stuff. So let's try some stuff. Let's say this one. Hey, I popped up. So what's that? How's that happening? Well, if we go to our HTML, we see in this first one that it has an on-click event of alert and some text in there as well. So alert is and our ID is being helpful there and actually telling us what the function is. So this alert is a function. It's a built-in JavaScript function. So I'm sure you've seen this on websites before. If like your login failed, or you didn't have all the right information sent in, or something that stopped you from moving forward. This is a very common thing to see on web pages. And now you know what it is. It's the alert function in JavaScript. So what's this parentheses thing? So we know this is a function now. What's importance of this? So just to show you, it would still work if we didn't have that. Reload that. Oh no, I see what I did. There we go. So now it still runs, but it just doesn't say anything because we didn't pass anything. So why didn't we pass it? Well, we didn't pass it an argument. So that's what that was inside here. I popped up. That's what this thing is. And no, this single quote here is just to signify that it's a string. Actually, it would take it in anyway because it's a type of any. But since it's a message, I would assume it would be a string. Actually, I wonder if that would work. Quick sidebar. Oh, no. I wouldn't, because the HTML wasn't taken in. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so this thing is called an argument. And if we hover over alert again, we see that in that parenthetical, it has message, question mark, colon, any. So message is the name of the variable, or in this case with the function, it'd be the parameter, and any is the type of data it is. So any means it can be anything, string, number, whatever. Can't be an array or anything like that, but we'll get into that later. So backtrack a little bit. Functions have arguments and parameters. So what you're sending is your argument, and what's catching it is your parameter. So arguments are the pitcher and parameters are the catcher. Okay, so we could do that, but we have a JavaScript file that we can also use. So let's go over there and actually use that file properly, because adding just events like this in the HTML is not recommended just because it's hard to keep track of as your files get bigger. So we'll leave that for now. Let's add this. So I'm going to write function. So this is a keyword for JavaScript. It's signifying you're writing a function. And then the next part will be the name of your function. So this could be whatever you want it to be. It will have to have the parenthetical. And then we'll have to have curly braces. And I apologize if you can hear my dog chewing on a squeaky toy over there. So now, inside this function we write, we're going to add the alert here instead and see what happens. So I popped, not poop, nope. Hopefully that didn't happen. Popped up in a external file. And so another little thing with JavaScript is C# will yell at you anytime you leave a semicolon off. JavaScript won't. And most of the time it doesn't hurt anything, but sometimes it will, and it won't tell you that that's the problem. So C# is kind of right for yelling at you for not ending lines with semicolons, so make sure to stay in that habit. Okay, save that, and I want to now, instead of this alert here, I want to write just, I believe we called it pop-up. Pop up. Save that. Now, hey, I popped up in external files. Hey, our little change is working. That's good. So now we're using our own JavaScript to make things happen on page as progress. Okay, let's add a parameter and argument. So, like we saw with the alert, let's add our own message. So we can just add a, oh, no comma. Actually, let's name this my message. Again, this parameter, it can be named wherever you want to. There's no syntactically correct. It's not looking for anything syntactically correct in terms of the name. So this is just like a variable in any other programming language. We can also add in that needs to be a string. Oh, never mind. This is JavaScript, not TypeScript. Anyway, so one of the things about JavaScript is it does not care about what data types are, or at least explicitly. We'll get into that later. So instead, let's take this, write my message, and now over here back in our HTML, I'm going to write I am in a argument. Okay, so let's try that. Hey, I'm an argument. Okay, so that's the gist of how arguments and parameters work. So you could add, endless amounts here if you wanted to. But that's how a lot of data gets passed around. We'll get into that deeper and how beneficial that is later. Okay, so we made something pop up. Let's make something have additional content. Because right now it's not doing anything. We want to be able to add things dynamically to our HTML page. It's like a like a shopping list, for instance. You add an item, it adds to your cart, something like that. That's dynamically adding things. So let's look at how we could do that, a way we could do that. So back in our script file, I'm going to write a new method. I'm going to call this, let's do function add span content. Span in this case is the HTML element span. Okay. So let's talk about how we declare variables in JavaScript. So it's just var in this case. JavaScript does not care about types for the most part. That's where TypeScript comes into play. I'm going to set this equal to, and this is another default function of JavaScript. I'm going to set this to document, GetElementById. So if you're not familiar with document, there is a video in this module that corresponds to what that is. It's an object of the browser window here. It has a lot of functions for us to use. So document is the page that's been loaded. So GetElementById, what does that mean? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's getting an HTML element by its ID. So if we go back here, so in this div that's right here, so that's where it's at on the page, I have the span that I want to add content to. I've ID'd it additional span. Again, you can ID things. Oh no, you can ID things wherever you want them to be. But I name my additional content. So now in here, I'm going to write additional content. Is that what I named it? No, additional span. Okay, just to see what that looks like, I'm going to console log this new span element that we made. So a lot of times we grab an element, you won't know what it looks like or what properties it has, and we'll talk about properties here in a second. But console logging it is a great way to find out, what type of data it has, or what type of properties it has, what can we use to manipulate its contents. So now I'm going to pull up my console. Maybe, yeah. Hit that. Hey, we got our span there. So it doesn't have much. It's bringing back that exactly. So in this case, it's not that helpful. But I already know that a span element and most HTML elements have something called inner HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and write that and then talk about it a little bit. So span element dot inner, and see our IDE is already smart enough to know what that is. And when you write inner HTML, your dog barks, so be careful about that. Equals, set this to new string. I am new content. Okay. So let's just run that and see what gets us. Okay, I am new content. See? Hooray, we added something to the page. So what inner HTML is doing, so if we go here, we see that it's blank in between here. Normally if we would write something in here, so let's do that too, something. Now we have something in there. If we hit try me, it overwrites it because that's what we told it to do. So inner HTML is literally saying, hey, inside of these two, this opening tag and this closing tag is inner HTML. Put wherever we tell it to inside those brackets. So for everything like an H tag, P tag, and anything you put text inside of, a label, inner HTML is how you're going to do that. It seems like images, so an image element wouldn't have inner HTML, or even if it does, it wouldn't do anything because it's one of the rare elements that don't have a closing tag. It's this one tag. Okay, cool. So we added new content. Let's go a little bit further with that. So I kind of don't like the way that looks. Oh my gosh, what did I do? I forgot to save my content. There we go. Don't like the way that looks too much. So if we want to go further with this, which I do, what we can actually do is we can turn this into a specific tag that we want. Because it's just writing inside the HTML, that inner HTML, So we can add not just text, but raw HTML to our page dynamically through JavaScript. So let's try that again. And bam! I'm way bigger new content. Big and bold. Alright. Cool. So that's how to add some content. Let's go a little bit further with that. By the way, this dot notation, so HTML sometimes calls them attributes or properties. Properties is the more common name for them. But this dot here is saying, hey, of this element or object, object you'll be hearing more and more and more, dot find the property that's in our HTML. And your IDE is smart enough to say that. Even tells you what it expects, which is a string. Okay, so let's add something for iTaken content here. So for this, I want to be able to, take in this item name and display it somehow. Right now the button isn't doing anything, so that's why it says that. So we still need to write that code. So function, let's call this add shopping item. Oh, not 90. Parenthetical. Okay. So now we're going to start just like we did with the other one. We're going to get the element by ID. So I'm going to set up a variable here, and we'll call this input element document. Use a document again. Get element by ID. A quick note on variable names. Some people struggle with those. The goal is always just to make it as clear to what data it's keeping as possible. So since this is going to grab the input element, which is this thing, off the page, I've named it exactly that. Anyway, let's find out what that thing is called. It's called shopping item. Add that in there. Okay, cool. So now we are getting our element. So now, I already know that to get this text, it is input element dot value. But that's something you can look up or occasionally log in the browser to be able to see what properties an HTML element / object has. So I do input. Actually, I'm going to set up a new variable. We'll call this input value. Set this equal to input element dot value. And just make sure this is working correctly. Again, log. No, because nothing's in there. We're buying a whole dog. Oh, no, I was totally wrong. Look at that. Oh, I went to node value. Sometimes your IDE is not your friend. Hey, we got a dog. Anybody want to buy one? Okay, so we can get rid of that console log. You don't need it anymore. So now I want to add some new HTML. So we'll call this new HTML. It's going to be equal. Let's do an H4 item selected. So we're pretending this is a shopping cart and we're giving the user feedback. So now we can concatenate with our variable above, put value plus, so that plus in a string section is called concatenation if you haven't already been hip to that. Closing tag h4. So now we need to put this into some content. So actually I already have that. I'm going to uncomment this new content div. So now I actually need to get that. So let's do var. Actually, let's be a little bit more experimental. Document dot get element by ID. Nope, wrong button. I want you. So you can actually write some of the stuff all in one line. And on, nope, enter, thank you, equals new HTML. And the decision on when to do that now it has to do with like readability is a keyword there. You want your method or your function, sorry. You'll see like JavaScript functions are called methods in other languages and they're pretty similar. You want them to be concise and readable and make it very clear what they're doing. Sometimes a variable is very necessary. In this case, if we're just adding content, this is, I think, readable enough that somebody can understand it, and we don't need to add in the variable to the equation. Okay, so let's try that out. So my page is already refreshed. Let's buy, what should we buy? Oh, let's buy a sword. An S sword. Hey, we selected a sword. That's fantastic. And we can still add stuff. We can still pop up stuff. Okay, what if I want all this to go away? So let's add another method just because I like to eliminate noise on my screen and be able to just throw everything in the trash. So I'm going to create a new... Actually, first we're going to go uncomment the scene I already have prepared. Haha. See that? Quick note on elements or on events. So this HTML has a lot of events you can use. So actually, let's see here. Yeah, so just typing on can get you a lot. Blur is a very popular one. So, and you can see focus. So on focus means, and this is not a very helpful description, has received focus, thanks ID. But on focus means you clicked into something. So now that's a focused element. On blur means you click out of something. So, like example of that, like we're signing in with an email and password. If your email is incorrect and someone coded it well, where you click out of your email, it will then check if the email is valid or not, rather than yell at you as you're typing it. And that would be an on blur event. No relation to the Britpop ban. I don't know why I brought that up. But so onClick is an event that we can use. So let's add this new element called blank out. I'm getting that function. Quick note, I originally wrote this method as clear and it wouldn't work for me. Believe that's because clear is like a keyword in JavaScript. So just watch out for that. If your function's not working, you don't know why, try changing the name. Maybe overriding something. But what we're going to do is just let's see here. I'm going to blank out some stuff. So we have to get this element again because we can't, these variables are only in scope of their function, which is really how you want them. Global variables can get very messy very fast. So it's kind of rare that you want that. So we have to get element by ID again. So I'm going to kind of grab this. Actually, let's take a note from our earlier selves. Let's clear this and then write dot inner HTML equals nothing. So just a blank string. And then this again. Save all that. Add content. New S word. Clear. Oh, we didn't clear that, but we could. Actually, let's do that just for fun. Value equals blank. Okay, so reload. Bam, I got something. I got dog toy. Try me. All gone. All clear. Alright, so that was an intro into some basic JavaScript functions. We covered functions, parameters, arguments, GetElementById, which is a very handy tool, some on-click events in HTML, or some just events in HTML. We showed some ways to manipulate a DOM and add HTML dynamically.